Here. Number 7. Look to you guys for your discussion on Allen Hill trails.
Okay.
Got about 15 minutes. We try to keep
I know. I'll talk as fast as I can. My name is Chris Maron. I'm the Executive Director for Champlain Area Trails. And we started in about 2007, 2008 because the Champlain Valley had very few hiking trails, and so people would pass through this area, and we really wouldn't get the economic benefits of being available for hikers to come here. So we started in Essex, Westport, Willsboro, and we made about 42 trails totaling about 67 miles. Several years ago we went, let's see how active we can become up in Clinton County, because we'd like to make some trails up here. And so we've been working up in Chazy on Ray Johnson's property to make a trail. Thanks to Mike Derrick and Jim Allen, we've had an opportunity to make some trails here in Peru. And one thing I'd like to draw your attention to is we've got hiking trail maps we put out. This is Essex County and this is Clinton County. And Peru is very fortunate because it straddles them both, so Peru gets to be in both. So after we get this trail developed, people can look at both these maps and go, hey great, let's go to Peru and hike on some trails. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike Derrick, and he can talk about what our trails are going to do there.
Thanks.
And also I'd like to say, last time I was here we were talking about the property right north of the Little Sable River Trail, and we're really happy to hear that the town's gone ahead and bought that, so that's great news.
All right, thanks, Chris. I'm Mike Derrick. I'm a resident here in the town of Peru, and I'm also the trail steward. And we have our landowner here tonight, Mr. Jim Allen. Jim has agreed with the Champlain Area Trails to put in place a revocable trail easement, which allows us to go in and take the existing trails and clean them up and then build some new trails so that we have an area here in Peru where folks can walk, mountain bike, ski in the winter, snowshoe, any non-motorized use is allowed. So I want to, I'll show you some maps, but just to give you some key background here, this is an important watershed. It's up behind the Peru Rod and Gun Club. It's the headwaters of Caldwell Brook, which was one of the main feeders to the Little Au Sable River. It's also historical. It has the homestead of the Reverend Robert H. York Sr., who was both a preacher and a stonemason. He built the Peru Community Church, and he also built the Hayworth Mason Building. So it's a beautiful site, as well as still there. It's pretty cool. It's just great land in that it is a healthy, mature forest. Jim has done some logging over the years, but using a forester, to just pull out certain trees. So it's really a special piece of ground, and I'm sure some of you have been up there before. So there are 2 summits on this property. One of them is Huckleberry Hill. On the maps it'll say Mount Etna, and I'll show you a picture in a minute. That has a great view to the east, all the way across Peru, out to the lake, and then the Green Mountains in the distance. You can also see all the way down into the Adirondacks and see the Great Range from the top of Huckleberry Hill. It's also a great place to pick blueberries. Okay, used to be commercially picked for berries back in the 30s and 40s. The other summit is Bennett Hill. Not quite as spectacular in terms of a view, but a really nice rocky outcropping, and that's another area where we're putting in some trails. So it's a mix of old forest roads and some new trails that we're building. We're planning a summer trailhead on what used to be called the Town Line Road. It's the extension beyond the Peru Rod and Gun Club Road, and that old road used to serve the homesteads up in there, to include Robert York's, and there were some fields up in there that were hayed also. So anyhow, I think by the time we're done with this will be the longest public trail network in Clinton County, because we just don't have that many places to walk in the woods in Clinton County. And I think it's going to be something which is going to kind of set Peru apart in terms of a place where people will go, and they'll go to the trails, they'll stop in town, they'll do the things that they do, maybe even spend some money. And also it'll be the kind of terrain where young people, old people, families can use it, because there's some great smooth low walking paths, and then climbing Huckleberry Hill is it's up to 1,500 feet, so that's a pretty steep climb. So it's kind of got something for everybody. Chris, can we go to the next slide? There we go. All right, so this shows you where it is. Here is Rod and Gun Club right here, the blue line of the Adirondack Park, and Jim's land is out here. Okay, next slide. This blows it up a little better. His land is outlined in the heavy black line, and then you can see the adjacent property owners. We've got Lime Timber Company, we've got Terry Signor, Peter Thu, we've got the Rod and Gun Club, and then you see the Allen property right there. This is the summit of Mount Etna, and this is the summit of Bennett Hill. Okay, next slide. There's another look at it. That one's kind of hard to see, but that's what you just saw a second ago. Next, please. All right, this shows you pretty well the trail network. Let's call it the skeleton of the trail network. We have a long out and back on this red route all the way to the top of Huckleberry Hill. That'll be an out and back one way, or just, it will not be a loop trail. And then over here on Bennett Hill, we have kind of a perimeter trail, and then we're building several cutoffs through the middle. And then one of the trails that we built this summer was what we're calling the Reverend York Trail, and it goes right by his old homestead, and it connects the Bennett Hill area to the Huckleberry Hill area. The trailhead that we are at this point planning is going to be on Mr. Allen's property right in there. If you have any questions, please slow me down or stop me. I'm trying to meet Pam's 15-minute guidance here. She's giving me the look. All right, next slide, please.
You haven't seen the look.
You haven't. All right, I don't know if you can see this. I don't want to see the look.
John
All right.
is.
So this is.
Be proud of that look. Girlfriend.
This is looking south, down towards the high peaks. Next slide. And there's the view out towards Peru. You can see the gravel pit right here. And then this is the Allen Hill Road, and you see some of the Forrence-owned land, which is leased by Adirondack Farms here. That's one of Mr. Allen's fields. And you can see all the way to the lake. That's, Green Mountains on the far side. So it's a great view. It's a better view than from up on the path. Okay, next slide, please. So last Saturday we had a volunteer work day. Normally on these volunteer work days we expect about 5 people to show up. It was 18 degrees out. John was there, and he can verify this. We had 20 people show up. And I'm going, what the heck are we going to do with 20 people? So we broke them into a couple different groups, and we worked on Bennett Hill, and Jim Allen and I had walked that ground a couple days earlier, and so we cut a couple trails up through there to connect the old forest roads to each other. But what I got from that is that there's a lot of public interest in this thing. We advertised it in the Press Republican and in the Peru Gazette and in the Jay Community News. So, next slide. All right, so here's where we're going forward, and this is why I wanted to bring this to you now before these trails are complete. Number one, to kind of get your buy-in on this, and number two, just to keep you informed about something that's going on in the town. We have some work to do in designing and finishing building the trails. We've got to figure out what to do with some water crossings. Some of them most of them will be like stepping stone kind of things, and we'll see how that works out when the spring floods come in. We've got to put up signage. The trails are not signed right now, but we will have them fully marked so people do not get lost. At some point we'll put up an information kiosk that tells people about what the land is, what the history of the land is. It'll have a big map with the trail network, and tell people where are good places to walk. And then we need to improve the trailhead. It's a little rough right now, and it needs to be cleared out and straightened out so that vehicles can park there. One of the challenges that we're going to face, I know right now, and I've talked to some of you about this already, is determining, I talked to Mike about it on the phone the other day, determining the status of that access road. So that's the road beyond the Rod and Gun Club. It used to be a town road. It was called the Town Line Road, is what I have heard, what Jim Allen has told me. And it served the people who lived up in that area and who had farms up in that area. And then at some point in time it was abandoned because nobody else lived up there. So we've got to figure out what to do with that road. It does need a little work for it to be so that people who do not have a four-wheel drive can drive on that. And then in the winter, that piece of the road in the winter turns into Snowmobile Route 8 down to Fern Lake. So in the winter we will look to see if we can set up a trailhead for winter use there at the end of the Rod and Gun Club Road. So people can park their vehicles and then snowshoe or ski back in. We need to talk to adjacent landowners and inform them of what's going on in there. And then we need to get the word out on the Allen Hill trails and just kind of go to some of the agencies, state agencies, county agencies. That's why we're here talking to you tonight. I think it would be a great place for the schools. You know, there's a lot of interesting, you know, things that not only like science classes, but even history classes could go up in there and talk about how people use the land and that kind of thing. And then we'll develop public support. You know, I'm going to keep giving information briefs like this. I'll probably go down to the town of Aussable and do the same thing with them because this land is on the border of the town of Peru, and on the other side of the line is the town of Aussable. And so we'll get some local press coverage, and then we'll continue with our volunteer work days in the spring when the weather clears up. So that's where we're at. Anybody got any questions or comments?
I thought it was beautiful up there the other day. I was really impressed. I thought I left early though. I didn't stay. I thought I was going to get lost on the way down, but I made it.
Well, we're glad you made it out. So, Jim, do you want to add anything?
I don't think so. No, I guess not.
Okay.
Mike, I have a question. You said that it's Trail Quarter 8 for
I think
snowmobile
it's
traffic?
Snowmobile Route 8, yeah.
Okay, so is there a concern with your group that snowmobile traffic will utilize some of the, you already said it was non-motorized. Is there a concern that
No, there's a gate. I mean, it's,
it's gonna, okay,
you know, Mr. Allen's property is well gated off.
Okay,
The
all right.
Snowmobile Route 8 goes to the south of it.
okay, okay.
But,
So it's not through his property?
No, not at all. Yeah, not at all. Just goes adjacent to it.
Okay,
You said that's a revocable land trust?
Easement, trail easement, yeah.
Is there a designated time before it can be reverted back? Is my understanding revocable?
Yeah, so it's 60 days on either party's part. So landowner or Champlain area trails, for whatever reason, can notify the other party, and then 60 days later the agreement will be revoked.
How do you handle the liability end of things?
I'm going to let Chris talk about that. There is a way, New York state law, I'm not sure what it is.
Well, it must be.
Yeah, first of all, we cover landowners with our insurance policy, and also what you asked is a really important question because New York State has a really strong law about liability and landowners. It's called the General Obligations Law, and it basically says that a landowner owes no responsibility to ensuring that his property is safe for people coming onto it, nor is that person liable if anybody gets hurt on their property. And the only two ways that you are liable is if you charge people to come onto your property, or if you intentionally create a hazard and don't warn people. So the law has a really strong protection for landowners for all sorts of uses. I guess the one it doesn't cover is swimming, so that's why everybody has to gate off all these swimming areas. But the law does protect people. It doesn't mean that they can't get sued, but the chances of the person winning in a lawsuit are very slim.
Yeah, I guess the only difference here in this case is you're more or less inviting people on, and then you become sort of like a third entity.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If you go from Mr. Allen's property up the road toward Mount Etna, follow that to the end, that will bring you out to the road that cuts into Lime Timber property, correct?
Yes, it is.
It does,
And then
yeah.
you hit that Lime Timber property, that will bring you out to the Mud Pond Road. And you walk up the Mud Pond Road and it takes you back up to the top of Terry Mountain. Why wouldn't you put that on your map?
Well, we could, but those aren't our trails, so we're kind of
They're
just
state-
focusing.
They're state trails.
They are
And
state.
you guys would have access to them.
We would have access to them. Also, Lime Timber Company signed an easement with the
Yeah.
state of New York for recreation.
Recreational purposes. yeah.
And so, let's go back a couple slides here. So if you see this parcel here, this huge parcel which goes all the way back through the mountains almost to Swastika,
That's not Lime Timber.
it's not? Is it
No,
Boron?
that's Black Horse. That's the Bohan property.
Bohan,
Yeah.
okay. All right, we're mistaken then.
Yeah.
This is Lime Timber here,
Yes,
okay? To the north,
yeah.
all right.
That one's for sale.
I've seen the listing in Timberland Realty, yeah.
Yeah, 1.9 million.
Yeah. So if anybody has 1.9 million,
Is that the 2,000 acre parcel?
It's 3,200
32,
acres.
okay.
wow, okay. All right, so we'll
But
change
that
that.
takes you all the way from basically Jim's property, all the way to Green Hill, almost to Black Brook. It's 7 miles long.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, you know, we'll see what the outcome here
You
is.
see,
This
you see
piece of
that little
property is
piece
for
of
sale.
property just off that blue line?
Here.
Don't come down, right,
There.
right there?
Yeah,
That's mine.
that's yours. You want to be on the map?
No.
Okay.
There's your parking spot.
Come off the map to the
Chris?
right.
I might say something is that's interesting information about that property, because I did use the county records to get the landowners, and they must be mistaken, because they did indicate the line was the owner of that, so, or I read wrong. But anyway, so that's a large parcel, because I've heard it's for sale.
Line, wherever Mud Pond Road is on that map,
Right here, in black.
okay. Lime owns all the way in, well, from the Mud Pond Road, all the way into the Black Horse property, which is Bohan. The guy's a chiropractor from Michigan, I believe.
Yeah.
But coming in, it was where the old trooper camp used to be, is all on Lime Timber. It was IP at one time.
Right. Okay,
Also,
well, good, that's good information.
Yeah. Also, one thing that I would say is on our Clinton County map, Mud Pond Trail is on there as a trail, so
Mhm.
anyway, it's just not on this because I didn't put two and two together.
Yeah. All right, anybody else? Well, listen, thank you very much for your time. If you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to get a hold of me. And I'd also be happy to take anybody up there if you'd like to see the trails, you know, just go for a walk. If you want to come up and help us clear them too, that would also be welcome.